Today's episode is brought to you by our company, NanoChomp Marketing Strategy and Analytics. We help product and marketing teams solve problems and experience growth using data and approachable AI. Visit nanochomp.com to learn more. Today on Soundbites, we have Matt Clark. Matt is the founder of the Virtual Edge. They help entrepreneurs from all over the world create systems for exponential growth. And he shares a ton of great actionable advice throughout the podcast. Here's Matt.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Soundbites. Today we have Matt Clark. Matt's the founder of the Virtual Edge, where he helps entrepreneurs from all over the world experience exponential growth. He's also a host of The Rainmaker Show, which is launching soon and will be aired on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, Samsung, and LG TV. That's pretty cool. Matt's on a mission to help service-based entrepreneurs create freedom through systems. Matt, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me on, Lauren and Derek. I am excited to be here today.
Awesome. So, sorry, go ahead, Derek. Were you going to say something already?
No, so we're really excited to have you. This is we're pretty pumped. We've been scheduling this for a little bit now. You've been doing a lot of traveling, but we're really glad that you could take the time.
Thanks, man. Still traveling. That's never going to stop. So, we make the time for these things.
Oh, well, we really appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about your past. What got you on this path to where you are today? That's a loaded question, but
It is. So I'm not going to go all the way back to when I was in school and stories from, raw stories from then. But it really came down to, I have always only ever worked for commission. And my first job out of school was being a waiter. Then after that, I went over to the UK and started doing door-to-door sales. And that's when I realized, I love sales, I love people, I love connecting, and I know how to do it. And it actually took me down a path of diving deeper into understanding the human psyche, understanding body language, and understanding how to take interactions where nobody knows you and get them to become a client in the shortest period of time, right? Because I don't think anything quite teaches you that like door-to-door sales. And so we came back to South Africa, where I was living at the time, and started up a company. And we did pretty well with that company, with myself and two partners. We built it up to like 6 million a year. And then I kind of felt like I had these golden handcuffs on, right? I love to travel. I love freedom. And also the South African rand is worth nothing. And I could just see the way the business was going, and it was kind of keeping me there, and I couldn't do all the things that I loved. So I made a decision. And, like anything in life, if it's too tough, well, you can change it at any time. Or if you don't like the way it's going, make a change. And so I decided to do that. So I sold my shares in the business, and I wanted to build something online where I could travel the world, earn different currencies, meet cool people, and, really just change the course of my life, of where it was going. And so, we started becoming Infusionsoft certified partners. That was the first thing that I did, because I looked at this and I'm like, cool, you can create automation for all of these manual things that I used to do knocking doors. I mean, that's like mind blowing. What business doesn't need that? Turns out there's a lot, right? Which comes back to the know your customer thing, which we've all experienced. And we started diving deeper into that. And then our clients were saying to us, well, this automation stuff is cool, but now we need leads in the front end. And I went down the Facebook route, went down the YouTube route, none of it worked. And we decided to go into LinkedIn. And I realized that on LinkedIn, I could virtually knock doors from anywhere in the world. And we started doing that, right? We could skip the gatekeeper, we could skip all the red tape and just speak to the exact right person. And so we started diving into that, and we said to a couple of our clients, hey, we're trying this thing out. Do you want to come on this journey with us? And they were like, yeah, let's go for it. And we started helping them get results. And then we just took it to a wider and wider audience. And now we've kind of come full circle back around to, okay, we're knocking doors on the front end, but now how do we automate it and scale it on the back end? And that's where we are today. And it's been a fun journey. Now my wife and I travel full time. We built systems to solve problems in our business that we realize other people need help with as well. And now we help a lot of people solve those problems in their business too.
That's awesome. It's great how you took the skill that was, we'll call it really analog, and it's tough to do. I think a lot of people really struggle with, overcoming the anxiety to have a conversation, to extract a problem and find a way to sell a solution to that problem. And then they think, okay, well, if I do it digitally, I can just touch 1 million people and make it work. And then I just put Facebook ads out there and make it work. But what they don't realize is the cost to touch all those people will rapidly exceed the value of being able to capture one, right? So you have to have those personal
Yeah.
conversations. And to your point, when you found that you could get to LinkedIn, get to those decision makers, and then have those personalized conversations, you could replicate what you were doing at the door, which was so successful.
Yeah, and there's this interesting thing. So everybody talks about, riches are in the niches, okay? And we say niche. I'm going to say niche, okay? I still can't get my mouth to say the Americanized version of it. But but it also doesn't rhyme with riches. So,
Right. Yeah, it
I'm gonna
doesn't,
use it
yeah,
once.
it sounds better that way. Yeah.
I can use it once, okay? And so what we realized is as we started to go out there, we were doing this broad-based knock every door. It was the same process that I did manually, now taking it online, and then realizing it's not actually as effective, right? It's effective if you've got a product or service that you can sell to the masses, where you can make everyone offers, and most people it's going to be a good fit for. And it's actually about getting that audience to offer so dialed in. And even thinking back now, even when we were knocking doors, it was a numbers game, right? We would some days I'd knock 300 doors to sign one or two clients, right? And it just goes like that. And you can do the same thing here, but when you really focus down, and we just figured out, like, how do we be 10 times more effective with 10 times less time and energy going into it? And that's, what gets me excited.
It sounds like you found a way to really narrow that target and have a more focused, tailored offer. And I think that's going to help with the results. But I think sales in general can feel really daunting to people. Lead generation can feel really daunting to people because there's a lot of rejection in it, even if you do tailor it as much as you can and personalize it. So how do you get people to maybe have a thicker skin during that process and not feel defeated? Because it can be hard.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And we're running ads now at the moment on Facebook to find another channel and bring in more leads. And there are people in there who are just like saying the meanest stuff, and I'm just like, well, it is what it is. And how we actually think about this differently, and how we help our clients think about it differently, is a very simple numbers equation. 70 to 80% of anybody that you engage with is probably not going to be a good fit for you. And that's okay. We're not looking for the 70 to 80%. We're looking for that 20 to 30% that is a good fit. So those are the only people that we focus on. And if we're not getting that 20 to 30%, well, then we've got to make some tweaks, right? Now, obviously, it's great if we can get it up. Sometimes we get it up to 40, 50, 60% of those ideal clients. But when you're reaching a bigger audience, you just got to realize you are going to get people that are not a good fit. And your attitude is really simple. I'm not looking for everybody. It's okay if it's not a good fit for you. Then I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for these guys over here.
Even when you do have some of those people that are a good fit, sometimes the timing is just not right. And that's okay too, right?
Exactly. 100%. It's just about understanding the sales process. Most people don't know the sales process, or if they do, they don't respect it. So a lot of people are just trying to take people from hello to let's get married. What about the courting? What about the dating? What about the getting to know each other part? So, we figured them, and how we split it up is, well, you want to take people from cold to warm to hot to buy. And it's just having that understanding of where are people in that sales process, so you know what conversation to have with them.
I think that's really interesting. I remember, gosh, in one of my corporate jobs a million years ago, I was managing the CEO's LinkedIn, and he was consistently inundated with people requesting his time, asking for advice, do all of these things. And he was like, it's weird to be on LinkedIn and like people are asking things of me. You coach folks on how to go from like not just dating to marriage, but to really warm up that lead. So,
Exactly.
I feel like LinkedIn can be, is sort of a tool that makes it maybe easier to go, like to feel like people can go from dating to marriage a little bit because you have that direct access. So what does like a typical flow look like, or how do you warm up those leads on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so and it depends what you're doing. And once again, it's like we take a look at where people are in the cycle, how well do they know us, if there's any associations, any people who are connected with that we know, and we can form a common bond or a common relationship. I mean, let me give you the framework around how we think about LinkedIn. Because most people are like, oh, it's a social media platform, you can just post and it's great. But it's a
Right.
networking platform, right? It's not actually a social media platform. And this is the biggest difference. So, I mean, we've all been to networking events, right? And we all know there's that one guy there that goes and hands out his business cards to everybody. And what
Yes.
inevitably lands up happening is you walk out and in the bin is all the business cards. So he hasn't taken time to get to know anyone. He's like, here's my card, let's do business. Here's my card, let's do business. You get another person who sits there as the introvert, is quiet, says nothing, doesn't engage, doesn't interact with anybody. And what happens? Nothing, right? Hoping someone's going to come and talk to them. The next person you get is the person who will go out there and actually be very strategic and very targeted and know who's in the room and know who they're going to. And they are really effective networkers. And the fourth kind of person is the person who's in the front, who gets up on stage, who shares their message, and everyone comes to them. So I think the first thing is you've got to decide who do you want to be. And there's only really two that are effective, which is getting up on stage or being really smart about who you target and who you network with. And so with that thought process in mind, now we decide, okay, what is the strategy going to be based on what your business model is, what your offer is, who you're trying to target. And that'll then determine the messages, the what you're actually sending out. It determines what content you put out there as well, because one of the biggest pieces that I see people miss is this one little thing. I'm actually busy writing a post on it that I'm going to post just as soon as we're done here, which is called congruency.
Oh, cool.
Right? It's having that congruency from what your profile looks like to the messages you put out to how you're bringing people down the line to the offer that you make. When you can find that congruency, man, it just flows. Because there's so many ways you can talk to people. You can have direct messages. You can invite them to a group. One of my favorite ways with new connections is to do what we call an ask interview. And this is something where you invite people to a call with you. You find out about what's going on. You give it a very specific reason. So writing a book or doing a new product launch or testing a new message in the marketplace. And then as a thank you for their time, and you tell them this is a no sales call, as a thank you for their time, you give them something of value. And that has been just one of the most beautiful strategies that has brought us plenty of clients, grown amazing networks, partners. And it's just so easy because there's no pressure on either side to buy or to sell.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think to your original point and Lauren's point, you have people that have all this great access to you have access to everyone in the world now. If you're willing to provide some level of value. In Lauren's experience, I've heard the term pitch slap. They'll connect with you and then you'll accept them and then they're immediately smashing you with a pitch. And it's like, well, you didn't provide me any value. You didn't even show me that you know who I am. And you're not even providing any level of interest. My grandmother used to have a saying, and it was like, before you can become interesting, you have to be interested in what the other person is doing. And then
100%.
from there, you can start framing how you can provide value, and then you can become interesting. But if you just try to smash the door open and be like, I'm the most interesting person in the room, nobody knows you. And now they don't trust you. So you hurt yourself twice.
100%. And, to your point as well, where everybody is accessible, I think people feel like they know other people because they can read some of their content, they can read some of their profiles. Right. So they're like, I already know this guy, forgetting that the other person doesn't know them. So it's like, dude, I've been seeing your stuff all over the place. Let's connect. And the other person is like, well, I don't know who you are or what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've talked about everything you're doing now is systems thinking. And there's this really interesting irony in that engineers are really good at systems thinking and generally poor at applying those systems towards people and interpersonal relationships. Whereas, other people are really good at forming interpersonal relationships, but don't think of it in terms of a system. And you're looking at things as, I've got a list of inputs. These are the input variables I have in my ingredients. I've got a system, and then I have outputs. I have to map
Yeah,
which inputs are giving me which outputs, and then which levers I pull to try and get a different result, right? Continually.
100%. Well, here's the thing is if we don't do that, then I'll end up being, then everything lands upon my shoulders and I can't travel. I can't enjoy life and do the things that I love.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you've got to have SOPs for every single step. And if you don't, then you'll end up becoming the one that everything relies on. And even if you do, and you've got a team running that for you, if you don't understand how those SOPs work, you can't track and actually guide them to do better when they do inevitably stop performing, right? So
Sure.
if you've got a team and they're doing reach out and you haven't done it yourself and you haven't got the right SOPs or working with them on that to help train them and guide them and fix the stuff, or you haven't got somebody in there that you're paying that can do that, that has got experience, it's going to be impossible to grow. And then you're going to have team coming and going all the time. And you're going to end up hating it because, well, nothing seems to work. And blaming the team
That
instead
makes
of
sense.
taking ownership on yourself as the business owner.
When you're putting systems together and funnels together for people, where do you see most people hit their snags? Like, where are the biggest pain points along that journey?
Yeah. So great question, by the way. And the first one is who they're targeting, right? That's always the first one. And because if you don't have that right, you're not going to be able to position yourself correctly. And these are the two biggest things is who they're targeting and the message they're putting out into the marketplace. So how their LinkedIn profile
Mhm.
looks, what content they're putting out, how they're branded on Facebook, what their website looks like. That's where the congruency needs to come in. Because there's so many people that I talk to, and whether it's guys who are in the high six figures or guys who are in the seven figures and growing or guys just starting out, even at like we got this client now, I mean, they're doing, multiple seven figures. And their big problem is that they have to continually, they're on this like revenue roller coaster. So they're continually creating customized proposals every single time. And the reason that they're working with us is to create a repeatable offer that, and because they're doing these customized proposal, only they can sell it, which means they're in the business all the time.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this comes down, then we dive into their ideal client, and their ideal client, oh, we've got people that do this, we've got people in this area, this niche, this niche, this niche, this niche. And I'm like, no wonder you've got one or two people from each. Well, why don't we dominate this one? We can increase the pricing, create a message that solves the problems for them. We need less of them to get to your goals, and it's more repeatable in terms of delivery,
Yep.
marketing, sales, everything. So I'd say those are the biggest issues. But then that's actually the cause of every other issue that they face. Because from there, it's not
Sure.
having a repeatable lead generation system, not having the SOPs. But well, if I've got all of these different niches that I'm focusing on, it's impossible to build that.
Sure. I think, yeah, you hit on a pain point that I think probably a lot of people, obviously, and that's why you identify it. But we had that right away too. We were looking at the time that we were spending creating proposals, and our average proposal was taking like 4 or 5 hours to create. And we'd sit and
Mm-hmm.
we'd have to be together, and we'd have to brainstorm and find out where the holes were in it. When we simplified a ton. We carved a lot of this stuff out, and it helped a
Yeah.
lot. Right now, all of a sudden, we don't have 5 hours of proposal time to get something out the door anymore. And we've been big into what we call dog with a note procedures. It's like when we're
Okay.
documenting a procedure, how can we take that note, tie it to a dog's collar, and send that off to do the exact same task versus the processes we had before, which would heavily involve our hands on it.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
think
love it.
it's hard when you're first starting out, right? It's like
Mhm.
you probably don't have any processes in place, and everything does feel
Exactly.
kind of bespoke and customized because you don't have a choice. And then I think as soon as you get busy, then you're like, oh, I don't have time to build these processes, and so then you sort of become a victim of your own, you know, success a little bit, and you're just sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't, I can't stop
Yeah.
because then if I stop, I lose money. And
It's
so
exactly
I
what
feel like
happened
a
to
lot
us.
of folks have a hard, yeah, it's like you have a hard time acknowledging that if you did stop and took the time to establish those processes, you could actually make more money and be more efficient. But it's a really hard cycle to sort of get out of.
And especially in the services space, where people are essentially selling time for money, where they'll end up actually creating
Right.
themselves a glorified job instead of a business, right? And, they spend so much time. I mean, my worst thing is creating proposals. I hate it. And even when people tell me now, send me a proposal, I'm like, I don't have one, but I'll send you a video explaining it to you. And if a proposal is what they need to move across the line, unless it's like $100,000, I'm not doing it. There's no ways.
Yeah.
Okay. But it comes down to if you're starting out, and hindsight's always 2020. Looking back, I would have said, okay, cool. Let's just go with one niche. Let's get one client there. Let's go get another one there, another one there, another one there, and let's build it repeatedly for that, and max it out. But I mean, it's almost impossible to max it out. So instead of maxing it out, then say, all right, how do I get bigger clients that are doing more revenue that I can charge more money to solve bigger problems for? I need less of them, make a ton more cash, and the client wins because I'm solving all of their problems, and it's actually easier.
That's probably a good point. So like a lot of people, like marketing agencies, they'll be the marketing agency that helps local florists, that helps chiropractic offices, that helps dentist offices. And then at some point they want to jump. So what is it for you? What does that look like when you're starting a local business? You've got these smaller clients, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going for Fortune 500 now. I'm trying to how does that transition look? And how do you continue to tweak the offer to be able to land those types of clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of our clients are business coaches and consultants, B2B in the B2B space. So a lot of them come from corporate, and they've identified something in corporate, and they're like, okay, I'm going to now go out and solve this problem. And then now their first port of call is, well, how do I get back to 25K a month that I was working in the corporate, but work half the hours? Right. And inevitably what lands up happening is they get to 10 or 15 a month and they work double the hours because they created themselves a glorified job. Because now they've gone from having an entire team around them to becoming a nobody that no one knows. Right? So I can't say about how do you go from being a florist to working with Fortune 500 companies, but in that position where you're starting out at zero and nobody knows you, the way that I would do it is, you leverage your experience in the end and really niche down to solve one problem. And this is where the offer comes in. So how we think about offers is a little bit different. And, we've got clients that have got, $150,000, $250,000 offers. One of our clients the other day, we helped him create an offer where he helps big corporates close deals. And they closed a $2 billion deal, and he got 0.5% of that.
Not bad.
Good money.
Not a bad day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't doing that before. So how we think about offers is a little bit differently, where if you want to break into a bigger corporate, the thing that they're going to have the biggest issue with is, well, what is the risk to me? And it's not the money. The money isn't the risk. It's the time for me as the CEO, or for me as my management team, or their team, or whatever it is. So how we do that is create a front-end offer that's for between 3 to 10K. And that's there to solve one specific problem in a very specific time frame. And it has a measurable outcome, right? So we show them the entire journey. We solve one piece of the problem and say, cool, if we get this solved, then we work on the rest of it. And so now they're solving smaller problems that lead to bigger and bigger and bigger problems. And, for a lot of our clients, they have their clients stay with them for 3 to 5 years. They don't leave.
So it sounds like you kind of take the risk or minimize the risk a little bit by offering something that's very targeted, very narrow for, if they lose, I'm sure a lot of these folks are thinking, all right, if I lose 3K, it's not the end of the world. Let's see what they can do. You build that trust over time, and then you continue to foster that relationship with that client and sort of get sticky within the organization.
Exactly. And it also creates a journey for more. I mean, if you look at, you go against like the McKinseys or the Deloittes or, those big organizations, they've got brand. People work with them because they've got brand. They're well known. They're well established. But if you're coming in as somebody that nobody knows, you've got to build that. And you don't have to go out and build it in the marketing and have massive teams, but you can build it within an organization, within a niche of a niche, and solve one problem in one time frame, make it super easy, get them a big result, then do the next and the next and the next. And that creates longevity, it creates lifetime value.
And then back to your systems, testing what that offer is,
Yes.
matching it to the audience, and then continually pulling the lever to see what works is extremely important. And I think
100%.
anyone who isn't repeatedly testing what that offer could be against their audience, they're not going to optimize, right?
Yeah. And the cool thing is, so one of the things that we help our clients do is create what we call a signature solution. So it's a visual roadmap of how they get their clients from point A to point B in a step-by-step approach. So it goes 3 stages, 9 steps. And it kind of showcases everything that they do. And then they say, okay, let's start at this one point. So I always want to show them the whole journey and say, but let's just start right over here. Here's everything I can do, but we're going to take this one little first step now. That already pre-sells them that, hey, when we get this, we're going to the next step already.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Sure.
I always want to think like, what's the next step and the next step and the next step? So when they're building out their systems are now thinking, all right, I can organize my thoughts, I can organize my delivery, all based on the model. And like one of our clients, he was doing that, delivering everything himself. When we built that, I said to him, okay, cool. So, because he reached capacity in what he could deliver. So I was like, cool. So how often in each one of these steps are you delivering the same thing again and again? And he's like, all the time. So I said to him, well, why don't we create SOPs for each one of those and create some training videos that go with the SOPs, right? Then you hire some consultants on an hourly basis, because there are people at that beginning stage or people who just like to do that, to help implement that, which means that you can focus on the big picture strategy, on the stuff that you love doing, and have these guys roll out your process as you go through and give them the support. And it blew his business up.
Yeah, interesting. It makes sense. Like if you can have a good framework, and when we look at things, we're looking at, is it repeatable? Is it measurable? And then at what level can a robot do it?
Exactly.
And it's like, you don't have to automate literally everything, but there are big pieces of a process, big pieces of your system that lend itself really well to that. If it's repeatable, if it's measurable, you can probably automate it. And if you can't automate it with robots immediately, there is probably low dollar labor that can. And so we're looking at that for a few clients right now, how we can implement some of the mental manual labor they do repeatedly on a daily basis that's taking a lot of high level people off the playing field.
Yeah.
How can we offload that? How do you create a dog with a note system that I can hand it to anybody and let them go? But no, that's really, really interesting. This has been super fun so far, and I know we got a little bit more time to go, but I want to talk about how you transitioned from this to getting into public speaking and then getting into a TV show.
So,
like, what does that map look like?
Yeah, it was, I can't even remember when I did my first one, but it was interesting. I actually saw, so before I got involved with Infusionsoft, I was attending a lot of these events that I'd never been to before. And I saw these people, speaking on stage, and, they'd make an offer and everyone would rush to the back of the room and go buy. And I looked at this and I'm like, are you kidding me? That is amazing. I had to go knock on doors and get shouted at and sworn at and have police called on me and, all sorts of stuff. These guys are standing on stage telling a story and people are running there and throwing their credit cards at them. How do I do this? Right? So I just went on the journey, and we landed up starting doing our own. This was actually quite a funny story. We landed up, we made a decision. Like we got this LinkedIn thing up and running. We're like, okay, let's get a couple of business owners together and let's make an offer to them. Let's find a structure, find a webinar we like, put a structure together, make an offer, just make it ridiculously awesome. And so we decided on running these series of events, and that we filled it with, direct outreach and friends of friends, and then a little bit of Facebook ads, a little bit of LinkedIn, or a lot of LinkedIn. And we made a commitment. And the commitment was, whether one person shows up or 100 people show up, we're doing the event. And so there was a lot of up and down, but the one day one person showed up. And I was like, well, we made the commitment. And I'm very proud to say that I had 100% closing rate on that day.
It's good ratio. Good ratio.
If they were committed to show up, I was committed to giving them my best. And we did. And they
Yeah.
actually ended up becoming a client. They're still a client to this day, 5 years,
Oh,
four or
wow.
5 years down the line. Yeah.
And we have a lot of conversations about Instagram versus reality or entrepreneurship versus reality, and like what a lot of
Oh,
people
yes.
see is they miss the whole bottom of the iceberg. They're like, oh,
Oh,
this
yes.
person, has this lifestyle. They don't see the events where no one shows up, where
Mm-hmm.
one person shows up, and your whole goal is, I need to convert. I need to get a lead. I can help this person. I know I can. How do I close this? They don't see those days, and then they when they're trying to start their own business or they're experiencing it, they don't realize that everybody is experiencing those things too, and then they quit.
Exactly.
Right. So it's, when you were talking about iterations, we're talking about trying to find your offer, find your audience. There's a lot of failing along that way. And I think a
Yeah,
lot of people end up quitting because they don't think other people are experiencing that. Do you see that happening in your world?
totally. Totally. The guys that do the best persevere, and not just persevere like, hanging on by your fingernails for dear life, but
Mm.
actually persevering while moving forward. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have seen this. There's different levels that you get to at the beginning. Yeah, it's hard. You got to get your message positioning, offer, systems, all of the stuff built. But then you start making money, and then you hire a team. And then that comes with a different set of problems. And then you get to another income level, and then that comes with a different set of problems where you're balancing, you're looking at profit and investing and wealth versus just how do I make money or how do I close the next person.
Mhm.
So there's problems at every level. I think the mindset and the realization that anyone in business needs to have is that being an entrepreneur is being a problem solver. Being a business
Mhm.
owner is being a problem solver. The more effectively you can see that these problems are not in the way, but they're on the way, you actually end up enjoying the journey instead of wishing you were at the end.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's super insightful. I think like a lot of people focus on the problems that they're having instead of just knowing that it is a journey and that you can overcome it. I think people do get stuck in the problem and they can't see
Mm.
past it. You can't see it as an opportunity to learn something and be better. But
Have you ever played
um,
the cash flow game?
no, I don't think so. Have you, Derek?
So
I can't
Mm-mm.
think so.
it's really cool and it's a lot of fun, especially if you've got kids and family. And uh, it's by Robert Kiyosaki. And
Okay.
it's so much fun, and it just teaches you a different way of thinking about growing business. And so
Hmm.
you start off in the game as an employee, or you start off with a certain job or business or whatever. And the whole aim of the game is to beat the game by becoming so wealthy that money just is pouring in and it doesn't really matter. But as you're going through this and you're buying businesses and you're buying properties and you're buying all of this stuff, these little things keep coming up where it's like, all right, mom had an operation, just cost you $100,000. Or
Mhm.
you forgot to pay your business license and it cost you this. You have your unpaid tax bills and it cost you this. So you have all of these
Hmm.
things that hit you along the way. And you've still got to figure out, well, how do I still complete the game even though these things are happening?
Hmm.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
was completely eye-opening for us. My wife and I did it. We did like a 10-week thing with one of with the dude who was certified by Robert Kiyosaki, and it is so much fun. And if you've got kids, play with your kids because it'll open up their minds as to what's possible as well.
I think that's a really good idea. And I think, like you mentioned, getting kids involved, like getting kids involved in like how world works, how cash flow works, how problems
Mhm.
work is super important. One of the eye-opening things, it almost seems obvious at this point, but Lauren and I had to go through a leadership program when we were in our corporate world. And one
Mm,
of the big concepts they pulled out of it was kind of poorly named, but it's called the 100 problem days. And basically what it means is at every level of your life, you're probably experiencing about 100 problems you need to solve every single day. And like when you're a child, those problems are, my shoe came untied and I don't know how to do it. And so like that's a problem for you. And eventually, like, that's just not really a problem. You can solve that. That doesn't hit your list.
mhm.
So as you go, the problems are going to have various levels of complexity, but the one thing that's consistent is you'll still have to solve about 100 problems. So you have to expect that that's going to happen. You can't be like,
Yeah.
well, shit, this terrible thing happened. It's like, well, of course it did. It's going to keep happening. Your job at a high level is to solve through it and keep moving, solve through it and keep
Yeah.
moving, and not get derailed by it. And I think a lot of people will see these things stack up 2, 3, 4 problems and be like, kind of crumble. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to see about 100 of them. And that was one of the big takeaways that I had. It's like, yeah, you're solving 10 unique situations probably every hour that you're up.
And sometimes the problems just stack up, and they're not just business problems, but then there's a health problem and a family problem and a money problem, and then the business, and then the team, and then they're like, I mean, we had one of these, I don't know, like a couple of weeks ago, where it just felt like never-ending problems, and like one thing happens, then the health thing happens, and I'm like, when does this end? Like I'm done now.
The answer's
Like,
never.
I've solved these. Can they go away and like just give me a break for a moment? But I think that's why, as a human, you can't just be focusing on one area of your life. You've also got to be focusing on exercising. You've also got to be focusing on your nutrition. You've also got to be focusing on prevention and not just cure. Right? You've got to be working on your emotional state, your spirituality, your relationships. Like you've got to be working on all of it. And it feels like a lot, but it doesn't have to be all at the same time. Bits and pieces here and there move you forward.
I think that's a good message for people starting their own business. And we've talked about this on other episodes for sure, but a lot of people get so hyper focused on the business growth that they maybe let other things atrophy, whether it's your health or your relationships or maybe things outside of it.
Yeah.
And that's probably, and we've all been there, but it's like, because we kind of fail to recognize that they're all so interconnected and dependent on one another. You can't really run a successful business if you're not healthy and you're not working on your relationship. So,
Well, that was one
do
of
you, go ahead.
Yep. As I was saying, that was one of the biggest reasons we dived into systems, is because, a couple of years ago, as we were starting out this business, I landed up being diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And I went from, 180 pounds down to, I'm doing this in my head now, 180 pounds down to like 130 pounds in the space of 2 weeks,
Wow.
2 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was like emaciated
Still extreme,
in hospital. It was wild. In hospital, couldn't work. And now I'm like sitting there, I'm worried about this business growing and all these clients that we got on there. And I'm thinking, well, how the hell am I going to get through this? And I made a decision. So, I worked on it, I worked on absolutely everything. I'm fine now. Most people don't actually heal from it because it takes a lot, and they'll end up being on medication their entire life. I managed to heal without medication, I've still got all my intestines and no colostomy bags or anything like that. And it was emotional, it was physical, it was spiritual, it was nutrition, it was absolutely everything. And one of the biggest reasons why we went down this route of systems is because I never want to be in a position again where if something happens to my health, the business stops. That scares the shit out of me.
There's an interesting meme I saw recently that really resonated, and it talks about the levels of your career versus your desire to be in the meeting. And it's like, it starts off like early in your career, like, oh, I want to be in that meeting, like you feel important to be in that meeting. And then it's, I want to run that meeting. And then it's, I really don't need to be in this meeting. You kind of go through that arc of, realizing that that's not where you need to be or where you want to be. Like other people solve it out, bring you the solution and figure it out. But when you think through it, what you think success looks like versus what it actually does is really, really different. And then things like health issues, being able to focus on that as being primary, your friends, your family, your relationships as being primary. And when those are in good harmony, it starts to drive positive outcomes across the rest of your life. And I think people think, especially entrepreneurs, like, if I just get this business working, everything else is going to work. But it's really the other way around, right? It's like, if I can get these things working, then my business can probably work.
Yeah. And I think there's both sides of the coin, because there's, also people who are incredibly successful, but everything else is shit. They've got a horrible family life and no one likes them and they're alone and they're unhealthy, but they're mega, mega wealthy. I think it just comes down to, your personal values and playing to your values. There was some really good work that I did a while ago. Have you heard of Dr. John DeMartini?
Nope.
really good. And he's got this exercise called the values calculator or values exercise. It's on his website. And it really helps you uncover what are your top values in your life. Because I think, social media has kind of bastardized it a little bit where everything is about making money. But not
Yeah, sure.
everyone's top value is make money, right? And he helps you actually uncover your top values, and then everything that you do must align to your values. So if it doesn't align, then you don't do it. And the more aligned you are, the more in flow you become, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then all that other stuff starts happening as well. So, like I said, the people who are super successful and, are not working and everything else, their highest value is money. And what are they doing? They're living to their highest value. Some people who are stay-at-home moms who are not making money, their highest value is being a mother. That's okay.
I think a lot of people maybe have a hard time articulating what that value system is. I think they're doing some things and then maybe feeling at conflict or confused as to why they're not feeling fulfilled. So I think having something maybe to sort of like your roadmap, like your journey. It's like this is their journey and this is their rubric basically for living their lives. And I'm sure it gives some context or some guardrails to how to navigate. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does, because this was a really difficult exercise for me. I struggled with it like bad. And, there's also that internal thing of, okay, but this should be a higher value or shouldn't be a higher value. And it's just not. And the truth is, your values are represented by the things that you already have in your life that you surround yourself with. So it really helps you to take a deep dive into, what is in your life and what you prioritize in your life currently. Right. And they'll change over time. Like, for us, for my wife and I, it's, we're traveling. It's about our relationship and the people around us and traveling. That's like our highest values and the business. And later on, when we have kids, it's going to be kids. It's going to change. She wants to be able to stay at home for 6 months and be with the kids. So we're going to make sure the business is in a place where that can happen.
And I think you made a point, but I want to really hit it home. Having values that are not necessarily the ones that people think you should have, that's also okay, right? Like you said, you struggle with I wanted to rank these, but I feel like I should have this higher. But if it's not, it's not, right? And that's okay. And I think people, have some societal pressures or whatever it is to stack things a certain way. Like, oh, this should be the answer. Got to put that up top. But if it's not, you're gonna have friction. Then you're gonna have resentment, and then you're gonna hate what you're doing. And the outcome's going to be worse, right?
Exactly. And because you feel like you have to live up to a certain image, but the only people that are portraying that image is yourself. And you're imagining what other people think of you and putting, you're creating a weird picture in your head. And, it took me a while to come to realize that. And it's weird. Like the more you're in line with your values and what it is that you're doing, the more confident you are. And the more confident you are, the easier sales becomes. The more you're in flow, the better your relationships are. People love connecting with confident people. Why? It's easy because they know who they are.
Right.
Yeah. And then it makes you feel better about yourself when you're communicating with somebody that's trying to pull you up, which helps a lot too. So
100%.
That's probably a good segue into this piece. You talk about competence, you talk about how you architected your life, you talked about your values, you had a lot of shifts throughout that. But looking back now, if you had the opportunity to have, dinner with yourself, 18, 25 years old, what does that conversation look like? What do you say to that individual? What advice do you give in that conversation?
I'd be like, dude, you're in for a wild ride. That's the first thing I can tell you. You're not going to be bored, number one. But if it had to be for the exact, and I couldn't change anything about, the life would still go exactly the same as what it had done right now. And I think that's a really interesting distinction. It's like if I tell a person that thing, would their entire life course change or would it go the same? And
butterfly effect stuff. Yeah.
Right. And I wouldn't do anything different. The one thing that I would do different and tell that 18-year-old self of mine is focus on self-education earlier, right? Actually understand what you want out of life earlier. And invest more, start buying property now, start investing
Yeah.
in stocks now. And that would really be the only thing that I would change, because it's been wild. It's been fun. It would look very different to what I'm doing right now, just doing those things.
Yeah. Your traveling life is so fascinating to me. You guys, you said you're traveling a lot, traveling the world. In the last few years, what's been your favorite place to go visit?
See, now that's a loaded
Give me
question.
two. Top three.
Yeah, no, and I say that because everywhere is so unique and so different. I would say the place that we've spent the most time in, that we love the most, is Thailand. Right, we're here now at the moment. It is amazing. The people are amazing. The food is amazing. Beautiful beaches, crazy city. There's just everything.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting and unexpected places we went to was Romania. Right, and it was just, I didn't know what to expect, and we got beautiful mountains. We got incredible landscape. We were in Bulgaria as well. Beautiful beaches, amazing food, amazing people, like just unexpected awesomeness. And then
Yeah.
I would say the third place I'd say which we love is Mexico.
Okay.
And we've got actually, specifically Sinaloa, which sounds weird. But we've got a Mexican family there, and we were there last year, and we spent 6 weeks, and they just like come live in our house, and they're just really, really good friends, really good people. He's one of 14 brothers and sisters, so we've met all the brothers and sisters. Went to
Wow.
mom's 90th
Cool.
birthday. So we've got incredible friends, incredible people. Just it's wild. I mean, we've been to 27 countries in the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's amazing. Give me a travel hack, or like a packing hack.
Oh yeah,
Since
here
you've
we go.
traveled so much.
My wife's sitting here. She's like, tell them this one. she's actually created an Instagram for us, which like kind of shows like little reels and clips and everything as well. I'll send it to you guys after if you
Fun.
want.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would love that.
Well, what is it, babe? It's Travel Across Horizons. Yeah, Travel Across Horizons on
Perfect.
Instagram.
We'll link that.
One of the best travel hacks ever is you buy these compression bags, right? To pack your stuff in. So
Packing cubes, right?
packing cubes, it is the best thing ever. And one of the reasons being is, number one, you get organized and it's easy. But the second reason is sometimes you travel to countries, and especially for us traveling consistently all the time, sometimes they've got very strict weight limitations. So if we get to the airport and they're like, oh, you're 5 kilograms overweight, open it up, take the packing cube out, walk on the plane with it. It's got a little handle on it, sorted. I'd say that is one travel hack that is the best. We got tons, like booking flights, like all sorts of stuff. We got tons, but that is one of the best.
Probably that was on my top list too. Like everyone who will listen, I would get the packing cubes, and then like Eagle Creek and a company called Pact make some really nice like compression cubes, which are pretty dope. And like it's life changing. And I think that coupled with what's called a hero clip, it's like a carabiner, but it swings out, so you can like hang it on the back of a door. It's like those two things combined, life changing when you're living in a hotel, which is or a hostel or whatever.
Yeah.
So
no, we stay in hotels. Like I need to work, I need good internet, I need space,
Wi-Fi.
Like, oh yeah. Well, I say that, and then this place, it's the most amazing place that we're staying in, but the Wi-Fi sucks, and it like comes
Can't have it all.
Yeah,
but then also
it's like a triangle. Like,
yeah. Well, the cool thing is with Thailand is the data is so cheap. So for like I don't know, what is it, like 1,000 bahts, 500 rand? What's that in dollars? That is like $30, $25. You get unlimited 5G, 200 meg download speed for $30 a month.
But I think that's like the travel triangle. It's like you can have cheap, clean, and fast internet, and you get to pick two of them. Like there's some balance between those three things that you get. You don't get all three.
Well, most of the time we do. I've gotten very good at choosing places.
Okay.
That many countries in 2 years, I bet.
Yeah. But we really like this hotel because we've got like we call them. There's this little restaurant just outside that is family-owned restaurant. So we call them Mom and Dad. So we go to Mom and Dad's for lunch, and then we know all the people in the hotel and all the staff, and like we know everyone all along the route down to the walking street. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's kind of like you're home away from home, but no
It
home.
is. Yeah, we literally say we're going home.
Oh, I love that.
What's nice about that is I think a lot of people when they haven't traveled too much, they don't realize that can be actually really isolating, right? Like being all out over the world. So being able to have little snippets of things that are homey, things that are interpersonal relationships that feel normal are interesting. Tim Ferriss talks about that a little bit. It's like, what do you get when you get your wish? It's like you want to travel, you want to go all over the place, but then you have these existential crises of maybe is this what I wanted? And then you have to make it what it is, or make it what you want it to be. So through all that traveling, what are you listening to? Like what books, what podcasts are on the top of your list right now?
So it's interesting. I'm not a big podcast listener. I much prefer to read. But I'll tell you what I am reading right now. Let me just pull up my little library here. Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Yeah. Patrick Bet-David.
Patrick Bet-David, yeah. And then my next one is Your Next 5 Moves.
Oh, so this other book, right?
Also Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah.
A couple of the other ones that that I've really loved and that I've gone through is I read a lot of like spy action thrillers as well. Just to switch off. I prefer to read than watch TV. But another really good one is Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. And that's more on the emotional side and more the spiritual side. So thinking bigger. And that book was really eye-opening for me. And the reason being was that it introduces you to this concept called levels of consciousness. And each level of consciousness has a certain rating or a certain vibration. And depending on where you're at will depend on how high your vibration is. And so this actually helped me to let go a lot of stuff because, sometimes you meet people that piss you off or, you don't get along with or whatever it is. Instead of actually carrying that negative energy with you, you just realize that, well, maybe they're at a different vibration or I'm at a lower vibration, and you can make those corrections or let it go.
No, it makes sense. I think those are all good. I just downloaded the new Patrick Bet-David book because I'd listened to his other two. I read his other two. I really like him. I like the guy a lot. So I'm really excited to see where this one goes. But I'll definitely check out Letting Go. That sounds like a great book. You just got back from Hong Kong. So one of my favorite little handbooks that I carry around is Bruce Lee's Striking Thoughts. So while we're talking about the Hong Kong connection, it's if you can imagine Bruce Lee having a Twitter account and then they just put it into a book, that's effectively what it is. It's pretty good. Like it's like little snippets. It's like really solid. It's one of my favorites. And it's when you're on a train or a plane, you can just pop it up on your phone, read through a few of them. It's pretty good, man. I think you'd enjoy it.
What was it called again?
But yeah, I think I'll send you a link to it, but it's Bruce Lee's Striking Thoughts.
Ah, sweet. Yeah. Striking Thoughts. I love that.
Yeah, and it's like basically his handbook of aphorisms.
I love it. I've read so many of his quotes and thoughts, and I've read some of a little bit of Marcus Aurelius as well. I think it's Contemplations, and there's some really
the meditations
good snippets and wisdoms in there as well.
Yeah, really good. I got a copy of that on my desk actually. So that's a good Beautiful. One. Epictetus has a good book, a really interesting thought. And what's fascinating about like the Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus situation is one of them was the ruler of the world and the other one was a slave, and they arrived at the similar philosophies, right? So it's fascinating to kind of see their notes from completely different places in life having like similar ideas on how to manage and deal with it, which is that juxtaposition always gets me.
It is, and I think the craziest part about it is, so that's them, that's the authors. Now there's you, the reader, who is only ready for certain messages at certain times. So the more you level up, you get different things out at different stages. Like, that's what blows my mind. That Letting Go, I've read a couple of times, and every single time I read it, I'm like, I didn't see that before.
Yeah. Because you're just not the same person. Well, there's like that whole, there's a quote about going to the river, and it's like, you never go to the same river twice, right? It's not the same river, and you're not the same person, right, when you're there.
Exactly.
Which is, I think about that quite a bit these days as I'm getting older. But Matt, this has been a lot of fun. Really, really insightful. Great information. Really interesting hearing what you're doing with the virtual edge, how you're helping people really grow and scale, how you're building sales systems, how you've architected your life, how you guys are continuing to travel and continuing to help people unlock growth in their businesses. Really great conversation. This is going to be a good one. And thank you so much for being able to join us from all across the world today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really, really enjoyed this. And please send me the recording, because I definitely want to use some of the stuff. It was, sometimes you surprise yourself about what you know, but that also just goes to show how good you guys are at interviewing to be able to bring that out. So thank you.